All right, good morning, peoples. It is your morning, Wednesday morning, a couple hours before the market opens. And we've got YieldMax Group C distributions. Let's run through the data here. All right, as you guys know, I've added this 6-month, how's it doing beyond. So if you just want to look in yellow, I'll set out here to the right. So CONY, $1.3391, so almost $1.34. Now, I highlighted these black and green when they're exceeded 100%. This AMDY was at 98%, but look, it's because this thing is NAV eroded so bad, it's down at 1077. It's only paying 40 cents, but that's a distribution of 98%, right? Whereas, and very similar here, you're $8.76, so 68 cents is all the way to 101. So you kind of see where that's coming from, whereas CONY is not that far off its NAV, but it is off its $20 original NAV. Now, remember, if you were in that at inception, you've already gotten your money back. I think it took 11 months to give you your money back, and that was somewhere around September or October. I think it was September because it first paid in October of 2023. But anyway, what I was doing, so you see your various yields and payment amounts. So Netflix is still hanging in there. I love it when its NAV is close to its original one. Yeah, it's 52% yield, but it's a nice payment. PayPy PP 1905. So I like these. Down here are your YMAX and your YMAG, 12 cents and almost 17 cents, right? You see your 40 and 50% yield. All right. So let's take a look at the 6-month rates. So what you have here is I went back and I just used a 7/2 date, right? Because you're always, sometimes when you pick a date, they're not paying that month, they're paying the next month. So it's really only 5+ months, but it's close enough, right? I took the actual amount of time from 7/2 and I took that into account when I calculated total return. So as a reminder, on your 6-month basis, did you lose or did you gain on NAV, right? So the 7/2/2024 price of all of these, and remember, there were no $50 starts back in the day, right? They could exceed $20, but typically that was the target open price. And so I simply just took the 7/2 close because it doesn't do any good when we're back talking about some of these funds came out in March or February of 2023. Well, we really want to see a realistic 6 months, right? And then you can just double total return. So let's go through CONY. And if you want to see what your particular one you're interested in, look here and look in the yellow. Okay, that tells you what was paid. This is the fund. And then obviously this is the yield column. This is saying what was the price on the close of yesterday, because declaration is 12/11. As a reminder, you need to buy before the close on 12/11. Again, sometimes buying it after hours, you can get it. It depends on sort of the brokerage. But you take a risk if you buy it in after hours on 12/11. Buy it before the close, okay? So you will be paid on Friday the 13th, lucky Friday the 13th. All right, so let's jump in here and look at a 6-month. Did we lose or did we gain in the NAV? Okay, and then what was the 6-month yield? And then we get our total return just for the 6 months. So in theory, you want to double that number to get your 52-week, right? So if you followed that scenario on CONY, it's going through a yearly rate of 76.4 for its annualized yield, but it's also losing 21%, which would be 42%, right? So the total return on CONY is not that great. It's not horrible. But it's not what it once was. Well, what is the big difference? Well, because on 7/2 it was $20.93. We all know CONY's gone up to 30, come back down below. I think it's been as low as, what, 13, 14. I'd have to look at a chart here on my other page. Let me do that so I don't disrupt that and pull up a chart. I used to know it when it was 9, 10, 11 months, but since I haven't been buying it, yeah, it got down. Wow, it looked like it was around 11 something in early September. I'd have to do a 3-month zoom almost. Yeah, here's a 3-month chart on CONY. So you can see that there was a movement below 12. This looks like right at 12. Then we ran back up to 20, came back down to 15, been trending up, and the last couple of days we're trending down. Now remember, it's going to drop the $1.30 something, right? So when it opens on 12/12, whatever the close of 12/11, then they're going to subtract the $1.34, the $1.3391. But this is what I'm doing in total return. Those of you who have been following my stuff, this is the actual payments, right? This is what 6 months of payments equates to. Now, I made a note here on this one because, as you guys know, on a few of these funds, and here's my note, 5 months only. It started on July 11th, but it didn't pay then until into August, right? So you got August, September, October, November, and December. It's only 5 months for this guy, whereas, and this one is very similar, 5 payments also. And this one is what, AB and Airbnb. Oh, why is my, let me get this zoomed in and then it should scroll just fine. Yeah. Okay. So what is that guy? Yeah, that's Airbnb. Okay. Whereas most everything else, and then you had the anomaly with YMAX and YMAG is, as you guys know, since some period in what, October, late September, they converted into weeklies. Well, prior to that, they were always monthly. So I had to add a bunch of weeklies over the last 3 or so months, and then some of the monthlies. And so that's what all this represents over here. But you can also just say, what is it today? Well, you had a 54.95. If you take that weekly, multiply it times 52, right? And then look at the price over here. That's the yield. This guy is 43.37. So these are still yielding very, very well, right? And you see it over here, but I'm showing your real number, okay? This doesn't take into account the underlying NAV loss. This does. So you have a 7% NAV reduction over the last 6 months, a little less than 6 months, but closer to 6, okay, on YMAX and 6.22 on YMAG, but you have a higher YMAX distribution. Well, because YMAX has a lot more components. It's got everybody, essentially, right? All the single stock fund. YMAG is a Magnificent Seven. There was a period where they were outperforming all of it. But I think you're safer, you're more spread out with YMAX. But interestingly, this is only saying it's about a 25% yield. Everybody, 40% or better. And this is only about a 21%er, right, on its yield. Because you do have to account for these other things. So if you look at that, there's a lot of numbers here. I mean, let's see, Ulty has become popular. My biggest thing is I think it's stabilized. It still hasn't shown me it's going up. If it was moving from 9, 10, 11, 12, and just clearly up, but it's not really doing that. It has stabilized in that it's not going down, and everybody talks about it at such a high percentage, but who says it's not going to, meander down to 5 in the future, right? So that truly is just, I wouldn't call it a Ponzi scam. I'd just call it a return of capital, and that's more of a scam when you call them income funds. Why don't they say return of capital funds? Give us your money. We'll give you a portion of your money back every month and call it income. Well, that's not what they presented themselves as. And I got that from, I don't watch too many other YouTubers, but somebody said on that Jay was on somebody. I don't know if he's on one of his fanboys or who is interviewing Jay. And he said, well, yeah, this is a return of capital. I didn't watch it. I've never heard him say that. I mean, I believe it if somebody said, I think or multiple people said that Jay said that. But, sometimes it can be taken out of context. Okay. In other words, of course, there's some return of capital involved. I saw NVIDIA, and I think 62%, but that's not necessarily meaning they're only intending to return your capital. That has to do with how much they're making versus what their fiscal year is and how much they had to pay out. Some of it's income and some of it's capital return. That's different than just saying all we're going to do is return your capital. We're only losing money, not making money. And I don't think that was ever the intent of YieldMax. Okay, so look here. There's some guys that get knocked down. Fiat, obviously, right? The inverse of CONY. Well, look at the NAV. So it's not doing so well. If this guy was way up, then this would be way down. They're both down. It's just this one's down a lot more. They're both, when they yield pretty good. But here you got a negative number, right? And down at $8.76, and you bought it at 20, you're losing money, right? So here's Microsoft. Look at this, interesting. Microsoft over the last 6 months, MSFO here, okay? Mainly because some of these were high at the 7.2. I could have picked a 3-month range and maybe it's going to be up. But there's nothing wrong with trying to look at multiple months. I can go out and do a year. I have all that data as well. Like I said, some of these guys like Microsoft, they probably have 18, 19 months worth of payment. Even CONY is around, let's see, 12. They're probably around 16 or 17 months now. NVIDIA is 18 months, something like that they've been paying. So what do you have here? Now, this one is very positive. Look at Netflix. I think it's just one of those resilient things, whereas people may cut back on food purchases, going out to eat all the time. Clearly, the average person is hurting. Families and things with rents and insurance and all this stuff at most levels. The exception being, somebody that's earning 10 million a year, I'd say they're not too worried about if they're eating out or not. They're probably on expense accounts anyhow with that kind of income. But that's a nice total return. And what do you notice right away? Well, when you don't have a red number there, it's a lot easier to produce result. So the two best numbers are mainly coming from PP and Netflix because they didn't lose anything, right? 1905 and 1949. Okay, this was 1623, and this was like 1768. So when you do it like that, it's easy to make money. I'm always harping on that. If I see a real negative NAV reduction, I get it that guys will say to me, well, Bruce, I'm in Ulti. My average price is, 960. I go, okay, great. But do you know a year from now where it's going to be? No, none of us do. But its track record is not very good. It's just that maybe its track record, if you listen to Jay long enough saying we're fixing it, he was saying that for quite a bit and he never fixed it. I can say on a chart that it's stabilized, okay? But it wouldn't be my first fund to run out and buy. Um, but if it can pay and stabilize, that's okay. But I don't think it can pay, these dollars anymore. It's just too cheap. It's under $10, right? So a 70-cent payout is a big yield, right? But what is it really? Over the last 6 months, you've made 10%. So if you double that to get an annualized return, you're at around 22, 21 and a half. That's good money, realistically, if you could duplicate that year in and year out. Okay, guys, that's what I got for you. So again, this is 6 month of income unless you see a little red, right? Which indicates that this is what it's doing, B, C, D, E, and then only one other payment, right? Look at what that payment was, $1.89. So there was a period when CONY was hurting. Obviously, fiat was doing well. Just the same would be with NVIDIA and dips and Tesla and crash. Okay, guys, that's what I got for you. Again, Bruce with Targeted Wealth Creation, not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. Group C data for you. Enjoy. Have a great one. I'll be back with Defiance. Bye for now.